Do you want to make some delicious, mouth-watering sourdough sandwich bread? Come on, let me show you how. Sourdough bread is bread in which doesn't require commercial yeast. The yeast that makes it rise comes from the natural yeast in the air in a fermented sourdough starter. Now, my sourdough starter has been active for 4 years now. It is alive and bubbly. This is what you must master first before making bread. Once you have a good sourdough starter, you will be on your way to becoming a wonderful bread baker using natural ingredients. I have made different types of bread, including sourdough artisan bread. However, today I am going to make sandwich bread. Wouldn't you just love to know how to make your own sandwich bread so you don't have to purchase the chemical-filled bread at the grocery store? So let me start by saying that sourdough doesn't rise nearly as quick as commercial yeast. To make bread, it usually takes 2 to 3 days. However, I figured out how to speed up the process and make my sourdough sandwich bread in just 1 day. You just won't believe how I do it. Bear with me and I'll show you. So I make sure I have my sourdough starter fed and active. I will usually feed my starter in the early morning and allow it to become active and bubbly in my dehydrator. Yes, I realize this temperature is above the recommended 83 degrees. However, it has never gave me problems and I absolutely love how quick it helps get the sourdough starter to rise. For this recipe, I will need butter, milk, eggs, and non-chlorinated water. I will need other ingredients, but I have found that when working with sourdough, you cannot use cold ingredients. So I go ahead and warm them up in the dehydrator along with the sourdough starter. Once the sourdough starter is ready and active, I add to a bowl 2 eggs, 1/4 of a cup of butter, 1/3 of a cup of water, and 2/3 of a cup of milk. Now make sure all these ingredients are around 90 to 100 degrees, whether you use a dehydrator or not. Here I just combine the water and the milk in a measuring cup just to save room in the dehydrator. I also add 1/4 of a cup of sugar, 1 tablespoon of salt, and 1 cup of sourdough starter. Make sure you are using a ceramic or glass bowl. I have used stainless steel bowls before and the sourdough bread reacts negatively. Also, make sure to use a wooden spoon. I would say plastic, but you know how I feel about plastic. Then I stir this all up. I'm going to be using a total of 3.5 to 4 cups of freshly ground flour for this recipe. At this point, add 1 cup of flour at a time and mix. You don't want to add too much flour or the bread just won't turn out well. Once you get to the 3rd cup, you may want to try and stick with just 3 cups or add just a little more. It will depend on how sticky it is. You want it to be a sticky dough and not firm. Don't worry if you don't have everything mixed up well in this step. When you need it, it will come together. Once you have all of this mixed up, knead the dough for 5 minutes. This will help incorporate all the ingredients. Have your spouse or kids wash the bowl that the dough came out of. It is great if you happen to have a clear bowl with tall sides, sort of like this one. You can easily see the dough rising this way. Once it is cleaned and the water is wiped out, either spray the bowl with cooking oil or use some butter and grease the inside. Lay the dough inside the bowl and cover it. Here I am using a plastic covering. Since the bread isn't going to be touching the plastic, I am okay with this. If you know of a way around this, do it. It is just to keep the top of the bread from drying out. You don't want the top of it to get hard. If you don't have a dehydrator, it's okay. The next step will just take a little bit longer at room temperature. I put the bowl with the dough inside the dehydrator. This rose in 4 hours for me. However, at room temperature, it could take 12 hours or more. You are looking to see it at least double in size. Once it has at least doubled in size, divide the dough into 2 pieces and either roll it out with a rolling pin or spread it with your hands into a rectangular shape. This is the point in which it is a good idea to have your Pullman pans out. You can shape the dough into the length of the pan. Pullman pans are great pans with a lid to help make sandwich bread. Always look for the non-coated pans. They are difficult to find, but they are the best for your health. Once it is shaped to at least the length of the Pullman pan, roll it up and place it into the pan. Make sure the seams are well pinched together and the seam side is facing upwards in the pans. The recipe makes 2 sourdough sandwich bread loaves. Now here is where I had to get a little creative. The Pullman pans are just slightly larger than the length of the dehydrator, so after sliding the lids onto the pans, I left the door open on the dehydrator and put a towel over the front. I caution you to not do this and leave it unattended. You don't want to start a house fire. Every couple of hours, I come to check to see how high the dough has risen. You are looking for the bread to rise until it is about 1/2 inch from the top. For me, in the dehydrator, this took about 5 hours. However, if you were doing this at room temperature, it will take much longer. Once the dough is a 1/2 inch from the top of the pans, preheat your oven to 375 degrees. Once it has preheated, put the pans with the lids fully closed in the oven on the top rack for 35 minutes. I always like to put another pan on the bottom shelf directly under the pans. This helps the bottom of the bread not to burn. After the 35 minutes, I remove the pans and slightly open the lids to let it vent. I allow this to vent and cool for 30 minutes. Then turn the bread out onto a wire rack to cool before slicing. I have this amazing bread slicer that my husband bought me. It comes in this bag, which is very convenient. It is wooden, it folds down, and it even comes with its own knife that fits in the side. Once you cut it, it is ready to eat. Throw a slab of butter on the bread or some homemade jelly. Yum! We hope you have enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have made sourdough bread before and what your experiences are with it. Are you going to try this recipe? If you do, you must let me know how it turns out. SHTF Survival Homestead Teaching Farm thanks you for watching this video. Please continue to help us help you by liking, sharing, and subscribing.